Hi, I'm Chandrika Jairam from the Evolve Room. Welcome back to our channel. Have you ever told yourself, I'll do it tomorrow? But tomorrow becomes next week, and before you know it, months have passed. Have you been there? And you know what most people think? Procrastination means they are lazy. But you should know that procrastination has very little to do with laziness. Yes, you heard me right. You know, neuroscience says something completely different. Your brain isn't trying to make you fail, it is trying to protect you. Today, let's understand the real signs of procrastination and, most importantly, how you can overcome it. Let's begin. Have you ever sat down to do something important and suddenly found yourself checking your phone? And you tell yourself, I'll do it later. But here's the interesting part: procrastination isn't always about being lazy. Often, you're not choosing between work and doing nothing. You're choosing between discomfort now and relief now. Imagine you have an important presentation tomorrow. You sit down to prepare, and suddenly thoughts appear. What if it's not good enough? What if I make a mistake? What will people think? The task is no longer just a task. It has become an emotional experience. So your brain looks for relief. You pick up your phone, scroll for a few minutes, and suddenly you feel better. But that temporary relief can teach your brain to repeat the same pattern: discomfort, avoidance, relief. Understanding this is the first step to break procrastination, because you're not fighting laziness, you're learning to handle discomfort. Do you know why watching a short video feels easier than finishing an important task? Here's the science behind it. Your brain is constantly evaluating rewards and motivation, and dopamine plays an important role in motivation, learning, and anticipating rewards. Now, imagine you have two choices. Choice 1: finish difficult report. The reward may come later, perhaps tomorrow. Choice 2: watch a short video. The reward is immediate. Your brain naturally pays attention to what feels rewarding right now. That's why your phone can suddenly become incredibly interesting when you're facing something boring, difficult, or uncomfortable. But here's the important part: it's not that your brain doesn't want success, it simply gives more weight to the reward that feels closer. So, the next time you find yourself reaching your phone instead of doing the task, pause and ask, am I choosing what feels good now or what feels good later? Sometimes the question is enough to help you choose differently. Not actually avoiding the task, you're avoiding how the task makes you feel. Think about it. Maybe you need to exercise, but you're tired. Maybe you need to start a project, but you're overwhelmed. Maybe you need to make an important call, but you're afraid of what might happen. The task creates an emotion: anxiety, boredom, fear, frustration, confusion, or self doubt. So you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow. And for a moment, you feel better. That's because avoidance gives you short term emotional relief. But comes tomorrow, and the same uncomfortable feeling is still there. So you avoid it again, and slowly your brain learns task, discomfort, avoidance, relief. And when this happens repeatedly, avoidance can become a habit. So the next time you procrastinate, don't ask, why am I so lazy? Instead, ask, what am I feeling right now that I am trying to avoid? Because understanding the emotion is often the first step towards changing the behavior. Have you ever ignored a task for 2 weeks and then somehow finished it in just 3 hours? Why does that happen? Because when the deadline gets closer, the future suddenly feels like the present. 2 weeks before the deadline, your mind thinks, I have plenty of time. But suddenly, the deadline is tomorrow and everything changes. The task feels more important, the consequences feel more real, and the urgency pushes you into action. That's why you might say, I work better under pressure. But here's the truth, you may not actually work better under pressure. The approaching deadline simply creates enough urgency to overcome your tendency to avoid the task. Yes, you get the work done, but at a cost. Stress, anxiety, sleep loss, and unnecessary pressure. So instead of waiting for panic to become your motivation, create your own deadline. Start earlier. Break the task into smaller steps because getting things done is great, but getting things done without unnecessary stress is even far better. There is another important part of the procrastination story, your prefrontal cortex. Think of it as a part of your brain that helps you plan, make decisions, control impulses, and focus on your long term goals. It's the voice that says, this is important for my future. But at the same time, another part of your brain is saying, but I want to feel good right now. And this is where the struggle begins. You know you should finish the report, but you want to watch one more video. You know you should exercise, but the couch feels much more comfortable. You know you should start the project, but checking your phone feels easier. Sometimes the immediate choice wins, and that doesn't mean your brain is broken. It means you are experiencing a very human conflict between immediate comfort and long term goals. The good news, self control is a skill you can strengthen. And every time you choose your long term goal over immediate comfort, you are practicing that skill. Think about these two sentences. I need to write my entire book, and I need to write one paragraph. Which one feels easier? Obviously, the second one. When a task feels huge, complicated, or unclear, your brain can interpret it as overwhelming. And when something feels overwhelming, you may be more likely to avoid it. So instead of asking yourself, how am I going to finish all of this? Ask, what is the smallest action I can take right now? Open the document, write the first sentence, read one page, send one email, work for just 5 minutes. You don't have to finish everything today. You just need to create momentum because action becomes easier when the first step feels manageable. So remember, don't focus on finishing the entire journey. Focus on taking the next small step because the goal isn't to finish, the goal is to begin. Here is a simple strategy you can try today. Think about one task you've been avoiding. Maybe it's exercising, replying to an email, starting a project, or even cleaning that one thing you've been ignoring. Now tell yourself, I only have to do this for 2 minutes. That's it. Just 2 minutes. You don't need to finish the task. You don't need to feel motivated. You simply need to start. Because there's big difference between saying, I should do this, and actually saying, I am doing this. The moment you begin, you've already broken the cycle of avoidance. And once you start continuing, often feels much easier. So don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect time. Choose one task. Set the timer for 2 minutes and begin. Because sometimes 2 minutes of action is all it takes to create momentum. If your phone is sitting right beside you and you're already struggling to focus, you're making the battle harder than it needs to be. And here's the important thing, don't rely only on willpower. Instead, change your environment. If your phone distracts you, put it in another room. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Close the tabs you don't need. Keep only the things you need to for the task in front of you. Think about it this way, make the behavior you want easier and make the distraction harder. You don't have to constantly fight your brain. You can design your surroundings to support the behavior you want. So, if you're walking, create a space that tells your brain, this is where I focus. Small environmental changes can make a big difference because sometimes the best way to improve your focus isn't to become stronger at resisting distractions. It's to remove the distractions in the first place. One of the biggest mistakes we make is waiting to feel motivated before we take action. We tell ourselves, I'll start when I feel motivated. But here's the truth, motivation doesn't always come before action. Sometimes action creates motivation. Think about going for a walk. You may not feel like getting up, but once you put on your shoes and step outside, you've already created momentum. You take one small step, then another, you make progress, and suddenly continuing doesn't feel so difficult. So instead of asking yourself, do I feel motivated? Ask, what can I do for the next 5 minutes? Write one paragraph, make one phone call, read one page, take a short walk. Don't wait for the perfect feeling. Start small because sometimes motivation isn't what gets you started. Starting is what creates the motivation. Here is the cycle of procrastination, task, discomfort, avoidance, immediate relief, guilt, more discomfort, more avoidance. You have something important to do, it feels difficult or uncomfortable, so you avoid it. For a moment, you feel better, but then the guilt comes, and that guilt creates even more discomfort, which makes you want to avoid the task again. So, how do you break the cycle? Don't shame yourself, instead, pause. Notice the discomfort. Take a breath. And instead of escaping immediately, take one tiny action. Write one sentence, make one call, walk for 2 minutes, then take another small step and another. Over time, you're teaching your brain something powerful. I can experience discomfort without running away from it. That's how the pattern begins to change. Remember, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to interrupt the cycle with one small action at a time. So, the next time you catch yourself saying, I'll do it tomorrow, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I actually avoiding? Is it the task or it is the feeling attached to the task? Maybe it's fear of failure, maybe it's boredom, maybe it's perfectionism. Maybe it's simply feeling overwhelmed. Once you understand what you're feeling, you can work with yourself instead of fighting yourself. And remember, you're not your procrastination. Procrastination is a pattern, and patterns can change. You don't need to transform your entire life today. Just take the next small step. Open the document, make the call, write the first sentence, put on your shoes, start. Because sometimes the biggest difference between where you are and where you want to be is simply starting. If this video helped you, subscribe to the Evolved Room for more such simple neuroscience, mindset, and personal transformation. And if you are ready to create deeper change, comment discovery call below. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.